record. Thank you very much, Ntatemoto. Hi. All right, so it was a very fascinating concept because, as I said, of the background that I had, I could not believe that we actually have something of that nature. So I started spending quite a lot of time trying to find out, after understanding what it is, and with some trepidation, like still doubt in my mind to say, okay, I understand this concept, but I still don't understand how we can still have this as an existing technology. So me and my best friend, who was also studying in Cape Town, he's today a software engineer working for a blockchain business, which is called Bank Zero, right? Which launched a few weeks ago. So we started researching it and said, okay, we need to figure out how China and countries like China are going to stop this, because they will have to find a way to do it. That was our only, I think, maybe concern, to say, okay, we see this, we see what it says, we hear the concept and the idea, but with the kind of regulations and the kind of stranglehold that China has over the internet, they will have to find a way of somehow stopping this from working. If we can discover that China will not be able to interfere with the system, then obviously that will mean this is the greatest system to ever be invented. So eventually, after we did that research, we realized actually that China has actually tried to ban this before, and they failed miserably. So that's when we started taking this thing seriously, and my friend eventually switched his career from the work that he was doing into the blockchain space, because we started realizing that this is where the future is moving to. And this was around 2016. So you can imagine how long we've been in the space, and you can imagine the kind of ups and downs that we've seen that have been happening in the industry. I then entered into the network marketing space, and I learned a lot about the cryptocurrency industry. I learned a lot about building a business, building a community, and that is what led me to be in the position that I find myself today in the space of Rubiluxe, which I believe is probably the best opportunity for African people in the blockchain or cryptocurrency space, especially if you're not someone who's a programmer or someone who really understands how algorithms work. You will be able to participate within the cryptocurrency space in a very empowering manner, but we will get into that on the second part of the presentation when I explain Rubiluxe. For you to understand Bitcoin, you first have to understand money. So let's start there. The concept of money is something that most people dismiss because they think they know and understand it, but eventually find out that they don't. The reason why we find ourselves enslaved today by the banks is because we certainly don't understand what money is. So to define it, we have a journey that we have to go through that gives us the history of where we come from, how we got to where we are, and the differences that have taken place in between that journey, and what the evolution of that concept called money means to you and I, and why that meaning will then make you understand the importance of taking Bitcoin seriously. All right. So the first system that was ever studied by economic historians or monetary historians when trying to identify a monetary system in an economy back in the day is called the barter trading system. The barter trading system is simply an economic system where you exchange one good for another. There's no object that you can use to exchange a value. So you have to use the actual value itself, which is the cow, the milk, the honey, which is the bees, which is the avocado, the oranges, the apples, the cabbages, whatever it is that you hold. If you want to exchange it with someone else to get what they have, you have to give them that. And then they will give you whatever good they have that you are in need of, right? So that's the first economic system that we had. We must identify certain principles that will be carrying throughout the evolution of money and resurfacing again during the Bitcoin era, right? So first of all, the barter trading system was not a system founded by a government or a central organization. It was simply a free market system that found itself in existence due to the needs that people had within the community. So the barter trading system is what we know as a public system. It is controlled by the participants of the system, and there's no central organization that controls it. The second concept that we need to understand about the barter trading system is that it's a peer-to-peer system. What does that mean? It means that I negotiate the value that I want to exchange with the other peer whom I'm exchanging with. There's no third party in between that will take a fee from me and take a fee from the person I'm exchanging my goods with, and then say they will facilitate the transaction between the two of us. It is a peer-to-peer transaction that simply happens between me and the person I'm exchanging the value with. So these are extremely important concepts that we need to understand from the first system that we know that we've studied in the history of money. Then we move into what we call the greatest system of money in history before Bitcoin, right? Because now we understand that Bitcoin beats gold, 10-0, right? But gold became a standard that was adopted across the world because it is something, or a commodity and a metal, that had spiritual significance, economic value that people recognized and realized across the world. And it had one of the most important characteristics of money, or a concept that we define as money, which is scarcity. So gold is something that in the African part of the world was very much almost abundant. So it was available in the majority of the countries in the continent, and in the southern part of the continent and in the northern part of the continent, especially in the parts of Egypt and Ethiopia, other people actually found a way to create gold out of other metals. So there was a point where gold was potentially abundant, but people realized, especially kings, especially in the Mapungube, which we know in Southern Africa to be the first place where gold was discovered, they realized that the only way for this to have value, or continued value that increases over time, is for it to be scarce. So they started saying that they associated only with royalty. So royal families would be the only people that would have the gold, would have access to the gold, and only certain select people within the community would get that gold from the royal family at certain points of time during trade. So that's how they maintained the value of the gold. But anyway, gold was very, very valued across the world. It became the standard of money that people used, and they exchanged it instead of exchanging one good for another. So that's how we moved to the new system. That's the evolution of money. Gold lasted for about 5,500 years with different types of systems that were used alongside it. The most recent one being the one that was cut off in 1971 before we came into the system that we currently have in existence today. So let me just explain. We have countries that we call superpowers in the Western world, which is America, Britain, and some countries in the European Union, right? They are decision makers in a whole lot of fields, health, finance, etc. So in the financial space, America sort of took the lead because they decided to do certain things with their policies that other countries were not doing. And that gave government a lot of power. So other governments obviously started copying that. What did they do? In 1929, please just note this also for your own personal information. You can just research this and watch some videos so that you can have a background understanding of this, because I believe we are about to have some similar event happening in a year or two with the economy of the world, if not worse, right? So we need to understand what the Great Depression of 1929 is, what caused it, and what it means for the world, and how it relates to you and I today. So the Great Depression happened in 1929, collapsing the entire economy of the United States to a point where they almost got rid of or destroyed the US dollar. So the United States government then took some policy decisions to, number one, ban the purchasing of gold by private citizens, which means you and I, if we were citizens of the US back then, we would not be legally allowed to buy gold. The reason why they did this was so that they could control the supply of gold, number one, and they can also control the price of gold, which they eventually made a legal or a regulation that managed the price in 1935, and they kept that price at $35 US per ounce. That remained the price until about the 1980s, right? Actually 1975 to be exact. So now we have a government that is now controlling what we knew previously as a free trade commodity. Now it's no longer free trade because the price is not even determined by the market, but it's determined by the government. And the government doesn't also allow people to own and control it. So there was now a shift in how people created their wealth, right? People now started having to be smart about how they create their wealth and how they then hold that wealth and protect it, which is where we find ourselves today. Very, very important for us to ask ourselves that question. How, number one, do I create wealth in today's world? Given the pandemic, given the lockdowns, given the freedoms that are being taken away every single day. And after creating that wealth, how do I secure it? From the banks, from the governments, from the IMFs, from all these entities that are central and are trying to take it through taxes or all these other schemes that they have, right? So we now go back to history and see that these things have happened before. It's just that they are happening on a much larger scale today. So now government decided that they are going to control the supply of gold. Alongside gold, we now have something that we call currency. Currency initially started off as a receipt that represented the value that you had at the bank. So when you take your gold to the bank for protection purposes, because the bank has a safe that they can lock, and they have security that will manage to some extent to prevent criminals from getting your gold, instead of keeping it under your bed where someone can just break in, point a gun at you, and then take it from you. Then you will have to pay a fee to the bank. And then when you give the bank your gold, they give you a receipt or a checkbook that will then show you how much of that gold you have stored with them. And then each time you withdraw, they would then do a reconciliation of the balance and give you back what is remaining, right? So that receipt system eventually became what we know as currency, because eventually people started using the currency to buy from one another, instead of going to the bank to withdraw the actual money, which is gold, and then going into the market and buying with it, then going back to the bank later to deposit whatever was left. It was just much more convenient and easy to simply just write a check, give it to the merchant. The merchant would then go to the bank and cash the check. By cashing the check, they simply mean that the bank will be transferring a certain number of gold coins from your bank account into the merchant's bank account, whom you have purchased goods from during the day. Okay, then eventually the government realized that they can adopt this system themselves and formalize it and then regulate it. When the government adopted currency or receipt, or the receipt system, we then started having the name called fiat currency. Fiat currency is simply currency that has no basis or foundation in anything else but the government and the promises of the government. So the difference with history before 1971 is the fact that fiat currency was attached and pegged to gold. That is where it got its value, and that is where, for a large extent, it got its stability, right? It is in 1971 when it was stopped, the gold standard was stopped, and fiat was detached or removed from being pegged from gold, that we went into a wild west world where fiat currency just floated, and the value was basically controlled by stupid things like which president was the president of that country, instead of actual value in the market, right? So then we have a very important meeting that takes place at the end of World War II in 1945 in America. It's called the Bretton Woods Conference. And it was basically a meeting that was to decide a monetary system that we currently even still operate in today. It's just a different version of what they initially decided upon in 1945, sorry. So the decision was the following. We have gold that has been adopted by different countries and they use it differently. We have had a war now that has affected a majority of the European Union countries, which are trading partners to Britain and to America and other countries outside of the Western world. So they needed to come up with a system that will basically help these countries get back on their feet and also facilitate successfully the international trade that they wanted to do with those countries, specifically Germany. So they then decided that they're going to decide on what we call a one world currency, which John Maynard Keynes, a very famous economist from America, is the one who suggested this. And eventually they rejected it to say that the countries themselves were competing. So which currency was going to be the be all and end all that was going to be used by everyone in the world? So the compromise that they made was something that we now today call a global dollar reserve, a reserve currency, which is the United States dollar. So they said, okay, look, we know money is gold. We know currency is what we can control as the government. We can't necessarily control the value of gold unless we ban people from buying it. So because we can control this currency, what we are going to do is attach US dollars to gold. And then that will be the currency for international trade. So we attach the US dollars, which is the currency controlled by the USA, to real money, which is gold. So any country that wants to do any international trade in the world will first need to buy US dollars. And how do you buy US dollars? You take gold, give it to the US, then the US prints an equivalent in currency, then they give it to you. You then sell the US dollars to anyone in your country who wants to do international trade by buying anything from a different country, okay? So this system was agreed upon. We had a global dollar standard with the US dollar being the global reserve currency. Then we quickly move into 1971, where the USA screws the entire world by lying to them. So instead of printing an equivalent amount of US dollars to the gold that they have, they started printing many more US dollars. And this is the concept of inflation that is also very critical in understanding the need for Bitcoin. So they inflated the system by printing more US dollars without having the requisite amount of gold in their reserves. France realized this, so they decided to opt out of the system and announce to the whole world that this is what they were doing. So then they had to manage the entire world, because if every country went to the US and then said, look, guys, we see that you are being criminal about this. Can we please opt out of the system just like France and get our gold back? Then the entire global economy would collapse, because the United States did not have the equivalent amount of gold that it needed to give to those countries. So from 1971, we have not had a monetary system in existence. We have had what we know as monetary policy. We've been operating on what we now call fiat currency, which is basically the promise of government that this thing has value until the government itself destroys that value, like it happens in Cyprus, like it happened in Zimbabwe, like it happened in Venezuela, etc., right? So since 1971, we have experienced inflation problems. We have experienced something that we come to know as hyperinflation, which is the complete collapse of the currency itself, which not only destroys the currency, but also destroys the economy. A simple example for us Africans will be Zimbabwe. 2008, the Zimbabwean dollar collapsed completely, and that took along its economy. Even to this day, the Zimbabwean economy is not really that recovered as a result of the collapse in the currency. So the monetary currency, or the fiat currency of any country, is one of the most extremely important systems that we need to understand, and understand how it works and who controls it, right? So far, a fiat currency system is a system that is controlled by two entities at the main in terms of regulatory power. Number one is the government. The government then finds what we call a central bank or a federal bank. And those two entities then issue any regulation and control the issuance of any currency in any country. Then they partner with private banks, which you and I use on a day-to-day basis, in order to issue this currency to the public, right? That's how your current fiat currency is produced. It's not money. The reason it's not money is it doesn't have any foundational value, or what we call intrinsic value in economics. It gets its value from the fact that the president, the governor, and the economy of the country, the political stability of the country are all approved by your Standard & Poor's, your Moody's, all these other entities across the world that give validation to governments and the government economies, right? So if tomorrow they wake up and say the rand is going to junk, obviously that means they've lost confidence in the rand, and the rand will then go to junk and it might be destroyed. That's how easy it is to destroy a currency today, because it does not have a foundational value like gold that is backing it, right? We will study the characteristics of money just after this, so that we can understand why currency is not money, but gold is money, and then relate gold to Bitcoin. So after we have what we call fiat currencies, also in the 1970s going into the 80s, we developed what we call electronic cash, which is simply the creation of credit cards and debit cards. That now, instead of actually going to the bank to withdraw cash, actual physical cash to go and buy whatever you need, you can simply use a card at a shop, right? You have Visa cards, you have MasterCard, you have Union Pay. These are the three biggest merchants that issue these credit cards and debit cards to people across the world. Then eventually in 2008, a new technology was launched, which is called Bitcoin, which is a decentralized monetary system that we will get into just now. All right. So this is basically the journey of money from as far as we can study it in history. And throughout that period of studying the history of money, these are some of the main characteristics of money that we have identified. So if you want to know whether something is money today, these are what you look at. The first thing is that it has to be a medium of exchange. The best example I can make is a comparison between the rand and the Zimbabwean dollar. So let's say you are selling your car, for example, and it costs 50,000 rands, right? I don't know what the equivalent of that will be in Zimbabwean dollars. Probably will be 50 trillion Zimbabwean dollars or whatever. If I come to you and I hold two different currencies, so I hold 50,000 rands on my left-hand side, and I hold an equivalent amount of Zimbabwean dollars on my right-hand side, and I say to you, which currency would you take for your car? Which one would it be? Would you take the rands or would you take the Zimbabwean dollars, and why? Right? The obvious answer is you would take the South African rands, because you know for sure that if you take the South African rands, you can actually take them after you sold the car and go and buy something else with them, either in South Africa or elsewhere, because you can then exchange them into whatever currency you want to exchange them to and buy what you want to buy. If you take Zimbabwean dollars, what are you going to do with them? Who are you going to exchange with them? No one is going to accept those things for anything. For anything, you can't buy any product with them because they don't have any value. So you cannot say the Zimbabwean dollar is a medium of exchange. That is why it's no longer money, right? It can't be identified as money. But the South African rand is a medium of exchange because it's something that you can accept and give that person who's giving it to you something of value to you, knowing very well that you can turn around and go and buy something else that you want with the same amount of money. Okay, the second concept or characteristic is what we call a unit of account. So remember the example of the car. You are selling the car for 50,000 rands. In order for me to know how much value you want me to give you for the car, I will look at the units that you are using, that you are requiring me to give you for the car. So you will measure the value of the car using the currency. In this regard will be 50,000 rands. So unit of account simply means whatever that thing that you are calling money is needs to be able to be used to identify a value of an asset or whatever it is that you are selling. Then we have a concept that is called fungibility or interchangeability, meaning that a person who's in Kimberley, a person who's in Cape Town, and a person who's in Durban, if they have 100 rands, that 100 rands is the same value for all those people, meaning that if they go into a shop with that 100 rand, they'll be able to get the same amount of value in different parts of South Africa because that 100 rand is the same value, right? It doesn't mean because you are in Cape Town and Cape Town maybe thinks they look better than Kimberley, the value of that 100 rand will be much more or maybe much less. It's the same amount of money, same amount of currency in the same country. So it will have the same value and it will buy you the same amount of goods. Well, given certain exceptions, of course, but here we are generalizing, right? Then you have a concept called divisibility. So if you're buying something for 50 rands, but you only have 100 rands, we have to be able to give you change. This is simply what it means. You have to be able to give change. That's the divisibility of money, right? Then portability is the fact that it must be easy to carry. So for example, when they introduced electronic cash with the credit cards and the debit cards, that was extremely portable because the only thing that you have to carry in your pocket is a card instead of bulks of cash if you're going to buy a lot of things. You simply just carry your card and you can go into different shops and do many, many transactions with it instead of having actual cash in your hands. So that's portability. And then the biggest concept that defines and differentiates what we call currency from money is the store of value. Now, the rand has satisfied all these characteristics so far, except this one, which is what makes the rand not money, but simply just currency, just like the United States dollar, the euro, the pound, etc., etc. Okay. So a store of value simply means if you had bought gold in 1975 at 35 US dollars per ounce, and you kept that gold in your safe from then until today, that gold would, the same amount of gold would today be valued at more than 2,000 US dollars per ounce if you were to sell it on the market, right? If you were to say, let me keep my 100 rands from 1975 until 2021 and see what I can buy in 1975 compared to what I can buy in 2021. You basically could buy quite a lot with 100 rands in 1975, quite a lot. If you compare that to what you can do with that 100 rands today, it has gone down significantly. You can buy very, very, very few items as compared to what you could possibly do back in the day. What is that? That is what we call inflation. So unlike gold, instead of what we call purchasing power to go up in value over time, in the rand or any other currency that is fiat owned and controlled by the government, it loses value over time and buys less and less as the years go on. So if you could buy more groceries with 500 rands in 1999, today you can buy less. So that means your purchasing power or the power of your rand has gone down, right? But the gold power has gone up, meaning that in 99, you could buy this much with gold. Today, you can buy this much. Same thing with Bitcoin, right? This is why we identify Bitcoin as a monetary system. So let's get into the characteristics of Bitcoin and understand what it is. So what is Bitcoin? So it's a decentralized global monetary system. What does that mean? So I'm going to go through the concepts simply one by one so that we can understand them. Decentralization is similar to the internet, but this one is much better than the internet, right? Because it is a monetary system and money is very, very important. So decentralization simply means there is no single point of attack or single place where this system is hosted. The system is what we call distributed across the world. Distributed, it means The system lives on different platforms that it runs off of across the world, not a single platform. So if you want to attack it, you have to attack every single platform that is running that system or that program in the world at the same time. So that is impossible to do because today we have more than 100 million people running Bitcoin nodes on their computers and on their phones, on their iPads, whatever. So and you don't know where those people are because they are spread across the entire planet. So if you wanted to attack the Bitcoin system and hack it, you would have to first access every individual's computer or laptop or iPad or whatever program, whatever system they are running the program on. You'd have to be able to get access to it and then hack it at the same time, right? Which is impossible to do, right? So that is the decentralization part. It means that it's not a company. So stop thinking Bitcoin is a company and calling it a scam and saying I got scammed by Bitcoin. Bitcoin can't scam you, just like the internet cannot scam you. On the internet, we have companies that are built on the internet, like WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google. Those are businesses or companies that are built on top of the platform that we call the internet. So similar thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a platform which is decentralized and it hosts a monetary system. Okay, so you cannot be scammed by Bitcoin. You can only be scammed by people who are using the name Bitcoin because you don't understand what it is to take advantage of you and take your money, right? So decentralized means it doesn't have a president, it doesn't have a CEO, it's not a company that has an office that you can go to complain. It is simply a system that exists on the internet to serve a particular purpose, which is to create a monetary system that is free, that is not censorship, that is censorship resistant, can be controlled by any government, any individual, or any group of people, no matter how powerful they think they are, and no matter how much money they think they have. That's number one. It is a monetary system because just like the internet, the first thing that we created on the internet was the email, then followed the World Wide Web, then followed Google, then followed YouTube, then followed social media, then followed all these other things that have been built on the internet, right? So as time goes on, we will continue to discover more and more of what we can do upon this platform. Right now, the first concept that we know is that this is a pristine system that we can use to store value. So if you want to create wealth and then preserve it, the best system that you can do so today in the entire world is Bitcoin, right? And I will explain why. Now, the second line says it's an internet-based peer-to-peer network. Remember when we spoke about the barter trading system, I explained the peer-to-peer situation. It is back again in Bitcoin, where we don't need a bank, we don't need the government, we don't need the central bank to do transactions. You simply need your phone, you need my address, and then we can interact with Bitcoin directly without needing those individuals or those companies or an intermediary. So it's a peer-to-peer network. Bitcoin is fast and safe. 2 days ago, El Salvador, which is a country, adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. They are using what we call the Lightning Network in order to upload their system and run it in their country. It's one of the fastest systems that you can ever have as compared to other systems of money. For example, a bank might take 7 to 10 days to do an international transaction. Because Bitcoin does not have any borders and doesn't belong to any single country, when you do a transaction, it will take probably 5 minutes at most. If we are saying really the system is hogged, it will take maybe a maximum of an hour. But for sure, the transaction will be extremely fast as compared to what we traditionally have today. And it is very safe because I've already explained that it is a decentralized system that cannot be hacked. It's the most attacked computer system in the world to date, but no one has managed to hack into it at all. And the more users it gains over time, the more safer it becomes. And you guys know that today data is the most valuable asset in the world. Therefore, if you can create a system that stores data and is unhackable, you have glory. You have gold. And Bitcoin is that system. If you store your data on the blockchain, no one can mess with it at all, no matter what they are, no matter what they do. It has very low fees. Because you don't have a bank, you don't have Visa, you don't have all these intermediaries in between the transactions, the fees are extremely low. Anyone can use it as long as you have an internet connection and a smartphone that you can download a Bitcoin wallet onto. You can use Bitcoin. That is what Bitcoin is, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that makes a bit of sense. So I'm going to go into a bit of Bitcoin mining. just a little bit so that you can understand how Bitcoin is produced. Then we will speak about Rubiluxe. Okay, so let me just quickly share my screen here. Hi, just please give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen so that I can continue. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so how is Bitcoin produced? So first of all, it was created by a person or a group called Satoshi Nakamoto and launched in 2008. The first transaction of Bitcoin took place in January, on the 3rd of January 2009. The way in which it works is opposite to how the system that we are used to works. Zimbabwe, for example, would print currency as and when they wanted to, and they could print an unlimited supply of that currency. So you never knew how much they could print until the currency collapsed. In Bitcoin, there's a maximum supply that we can have, and that supply is printed according to 4-year periods using 10-minute intervals that give us a supply. So the supply is a total of 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be produced. That number cannot be increased or reduced, not by anyone in the world, including the people who created the system themselves. The way in which we are producing the 21 million Bitcoin is over a period of 131 years in total, right? So we started in 2009 and we use 4-year periods. So the first 4-year period was between 2009 and 2012, where every 10 minutes approximately, 50 Bitcoin were produced into the system. Now, how do we produce Bitcoin? You simply follow the same logic that you use on in today's financial world. When you go to the shop and you put your card into the machine, it will say authorizing. What it's doing when it's saying authorizing is to contact the bank that owns that machine, to contact the bank that owns the card that you've put in the machine, and check whether the account has enough funds to accept the transaction. If the transaction gets accepted, you receive an SMS to confirm the transaction and approve it. Then you also receive a slip that approves the transaction from that machine. Then the transaction is done, but it's not settled. So there's 2 parts to a transaction. It's the actual transaction taking place at the moment. And then the second part of the transaction is called the settlement of the transaction that takes place at a later stage. In Bitcoin, the transaction and its settlement take place at the same time. That's another evolution that is different from the current financial system. So every 10 minutes, you would have people doing transactions like, let's say, for example, I am buying a product on Rubiluxe. That transaction has to go into the blockchain. Someone has to verify it, or something has to verify it, just like in the banking sector, to check whether I actually have the Bitcoin that I'm claiming to send to Rubiluxe before Rubiluxe can give me the product that I'm buying. So what happens is there's something we call the blockchain, which is the ledger, where all the transactions that take place in Bitcoin are recorded, okay? So when you do a transaction, it has to be verified by a mining machine. That mining machine is simply just a smart computer that does millions and millions of calculations per second, that tries to identify whether you have the Bitcoin that you're trying to send. It verifies the account that you're sending the Bitcoin to, and then confirms the transaction. If the transaction is valid, it gets recorded on the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, which is the ledger that cannot be changed. As soon as your transaction is recorded on the blockchain, no one can change it. So that is basically what we call Bitcoin mining. Today, we are currently in the 5th 4-year period of Bitcoin. So between 2020 and 2024, the number of Bitcoin that are produced by mining companies into the world is 6.25 Bitcoin approximately every 10 minutes. So if you want Bitcoin and you want to go into mining, that's how much you can accept to compete for globally. So every mining company in the blockchain space is competing for 6.25 Bitcoin every 10 minutes, every single day. The total amount that is produced daily is 900 Bitcoin. So you can imagine, the last time I checked, there were more than 500 mining companies across the world, and all of them are trying to get as much power and as cheaper electricity as possible so that they can get as much of this 900 Bitcoin that is available daily. We at Rubiluxe have created a different system because we realized that since 2009, a majority of the Bitcoin that will ever exist is already in the market. So why not push adoption and try to get people to use their Bitcoin for their day-to-day events, day-to-day occurrences, their day-to-day normal usages. And then we can simply just earn those Bitcoin. That's how we are going to accumulate them, right? So this is the process of how Bitcoin gets produced. It is disinflationary. There is no a problem of inflation or hyperinflation in this system because every 4 years, the number of Bitcoin that is produced gets cut in half. So from 50 to 25, from 25 to 12.5, from 12.5 to 6.25. And then by the year 2140, it will be zero because we will no longer be able to produce any more Bitcoin. So people across the world, all of us will have to use the Bitcoin that will be there. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, you see the price of Bitcoin going from zero to today being around 800,000 rands, which is approximately 50,000 US dollars in a space of 11, 12 years. It's because as more and more people demand Bitcoin, less and less of it gets produced every 4 years. So if supply goes down, but demand goes up, the price has to go up. That is just basic economics 101. So that is where we are, and that is how the price of Bitcoin continues to go up so much. So now we want to accumulate Bitcoin. You can earn it, for example, if you are Pick and Pay, if you are Checkers and businesses like that. There are many, many businesses across the world that accept Bitcoin. In El Salvador, almost every business is now accepting Bitcoin because it is legal tender. So if you want to buy stuff, you can use Bitcoin, and then the business that you are buying for will be accumulating Bitcoin because they are earning it from you through the transactions. You can directly buy Bitcoin, so you don't need any of us. Don't let anyone lie to you or ask you for your money and say they will do it for you. It is a very simple thing. You simply go onto your phone, go to your Play Store, download a Bitcoin wallet. You can download VALR, Luno, etc. And then you link it to your bank account, transfer some currency into it, then you can buy yourself some Bitcoin and hold it. That's simply, that's the simplest way that you can get Bitcoin, right? You can accept it. It's a similar way to the earning part, because if you're a merchant, you can accept Bitcoin. Or you can trade it. And this is coming soon on the Rubiluxe platform. So we will expand on that as soon as we have our trading partnership launched. Then you can mine it, which is what I just explained above, right? So Rubiluxe is a merchant that helps us earn Bitcoin. So now I'm going to just give you a brief explanation of what Rubiluxe is before we can close the presentation and then take some questions. Just by the way, there is a chat box on Zoom. So if you have any question about anything that I've spoken about so far, please just go there and post it so that you don't forget the question. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll be able to come back to you and then respond. Okay, so Rubiluxe is a concept that we started in November 2019. It's a few of us that we used to be in a previous network marketing company. So some of the most uber successful people from that company decided to start this thing that we call Rubiluxe. Then they decided to contact a few of the African brothers and sisters that they used to work with, that whose potential they realized, to partner with them and push this concept, build it from the ground up, and build it into a multi-billion Bitcoin business. So that is what we are doing. We are some of the first people that have become a part of this. We had quite a few people that joined the business from the initial launch period, but those people have fallen off the ground, because if you have built a business or any organization at all before in your life, you will understand how extremely difficult it can be, especially when you have a situation of a pandemic where countries are locked down and people cannot travel. It's going to be extremely challenging in order to build a successful business. But we are still here, and we've managed to build the business to what we have today. We've launched several products and are continually launching more and more. And we hope that you guys are going to join the ship and help us build this business, because it definitely will give you some financial independence, financial freedom, not only to you, but also to your children and your children's children. And I will explain to you how it's going to do that, right? So firstly, it's a global community without borders. So Rubiluxe is a company that is international and global. It is built upon the Bitcoin blockchain, so it's also distributed, and it helps you to basically tap into concepts of eBay, Amazon, Alibaba, but without the money going all to the top, we are able to share that money amongst ourselves that comes into the network. You can basically perform secure purchases and transfers, because we have what we call the Rubiluxe wallet, which is a payment platform that gives you access to both fiat currencies and cryptocurrencies, right? Rubiluxe is a social and economic movement that digitally unites merchants and shoppers from around the globe who understand the power and freedom Bitcoin offers. So the simple way I explain this is the following. Just imagine Rubiluxe as a global cryptocurrency mall. Okay, that is what it is. That's the concept. It's a mall where you can find multiple products, multiple services that are offered by different merchants. And then in that mall, you will find the members, or what we call shoppers. Shoppers that are going to go and buy whatever they want to buy, just like they do on Take-A-Lot, just like they do on Amazon. The difference is the foundation of this business is based on Bitcoin. So the currency that we will be using, or the monetary system that we use on Rubiluxe, is Bitcoin, right? It is the safest way to buy stuff on the internet because at the end of the day, it is internet money, right? And it gains value over time. So what better way or what better system to use? Because it has that power and that freedom to allow us to create such a business on a global scale. So you can become a part of Rubiluxe as an affiliate, as an agent, as a member, or a merchant. Rubiluxe also helps you to do the following: to earn Bitcoin. If you're an affiliate and you are bringing people into the platform, you are selling the Rubiluxe products, you will be earning in Bitcoin. That's another way of accumulating Bitcoin. It helps you to spend Bitcoin. So let's say, for example, I'm an affiliate, 100% of my income comes from Rubiluxe. That means 100% of my income is paid in Bitcoin. So if I want to buy stuff in Bitcoin and I don't use Rubiluxe, what will I have to do? I'm firstly going to have to deposit my Bitcoin into a local cryptocurrency exchange, convert my Bitcoin into South African rands, then go to the shop and buy whatever I need. So that is a long process. So because I'm in Rubiluxe, I'm an affiliate and I earn in Bitcoin, why not just have the platform to assist me to buy whatever I need on the platform using Bitcoin without having to go through that process of a conversion? It helps you to save because it has a payment platform, which is essentially a Bitcoin cryptocurrency bank, where you can basically put your Bitcoin safely in a way that is sort of like a hard wallet, right? And then you can share the Bitcoin. Because it's a payment platform, you can send Bitcoin back and forth from yourself to other people and from other people to yourself using your Bitcoin wallet. If you join as a merchant, these are some of the benefits that you get from Rubiluxe. You get space in the digital mall, as I've already explained, similar to successful models like Amazon and eBay using digital currency. You get advertising access to all Rubiluxe agents, affiliates, and members, anticipating over 100 million people. You get significant savings on advertising and business fees, and you get what we call Crown Rubiluxe tokens, which are similar to your Smart Shopper points or any of those programs that gets run by your local grocery shop that give you a card that accumulates points, and then you can later use those points to buy things at the shop. Similar thing. Then you can also get participation in cooperative buyer discounts. You can recruit a team of other agents and affiliates to earn and override on the transactions they produce. So this is the network marketing part of the business where I come to you and I say, I'm an affiliate with Rubiluxe. I sell products to different people. People use my link to play Lotto. They can play Lotto from China, play Lotto from Australia, play Lotto from America, from Europe, but they use my link. As soon as they buy a coupon, I get paid commission for those people using my link to buy the coupon on Rubiluxe. That is a brilliant way of earning some passive income on my side. So I would like you to join me, become a part of this team, and then build a business similar to me, right? When I do that, I'm building a network or an affiliate business that will basically give me and offer me passive income through other people's efforts. Now, one of the most important things that we need to understand, especially in the cryptocurrency industry, is that it's very difficult today to find any company that doesn't use this strategy. I'll give you a simple example. If you look at almost all the exchanges in South Africa, they depend on their success based on word of mouth. Okay, so Luno, for example, became extremely successful in South Africa because of us. And it's not a mistake. The business that we were in before was one of the biggest network marketing businesses in the world, but particularly in South Africa. Each time we did presentations, we would tell people, download a wallet, get your Bitcoin. Then at the end of the presentation, people would ask us, which wallet? We would simply go help them to download Luno, and then they would buy their first Bitcoin with Luno. So between 2016, 17, 18, Luno gained a whole lot of clients from us and our efforts, but we didn't make any money from there. So I want us to understand this, that every company is using this. Here you are just being allowed to earn from your work. There's another wallet that was launched recently called VALR. They are even proud of this. They are not even making it a secret. They have a referral link and they have a referral program. They say to you, whenever you tell people about Bitcoin, please, if they are interested and they want to buy Bitcoin, send them a link of our wallet so that they can use our wallet to buy the Bitcoin. Then we will give you a few rands They don't even give you Bitcoin. They give you a few rands for your hard work, right? So if you really, really want to gain from your hard work, adopt a system such as Rubiluxe, which will allow you to earn Bitcoin when you refer people onto all these platforms and introduce them to the world of cryptocurrencies. Don't think you are being a better person and thinking that you are not a network. You are. You just don't realize it, and maybe you are not earning from it, right? So we are offering you an opportunity to say, when you recommend people to the platform, if whether they build a team or not, whether they come to just use the products that are on the platform, you will be paid in Bitcoin for your efforts. And you get paid every time they do that for the rest of your life, not just once off, right? So you can become an agent and earn a piece of the transactions from any of the more than 80,000 merchants in the world you bring to Rubiluxe who accept Bitcoin. Of course, don't forget to enroll shoppers as members and earn commissions on their purchases. When you join as an affiliate, you can supplement your income with consumer direct marketing strategies to attract members and earn commissions on the sales they generate in Rubiluxe.shop. We approached a gentleman who works for Virgin Active. I didn't know that they had this program. So they have to get people to become members of Virgin Active. And then once they get the customer obviously will then pay a monthly premium. Then we asked him, me and Silo, okay, so what happens with your commission? He said, no, what happens is I'll get a customer and then I'll get commission once off. And then obviously Virgin Active will now gain from the monthly premium that they get, which to some extent is unfair because it's not like it's Virgin Active that found themselves that customer. It is that individual who found the customer, but he only gets to benefit once off. In our system, you find the customer, you get paid commission. The customer comes into the platform, they buy something, you get paid commission. They invite someone else, you get paid commission. They invite another person 5 years from now, you get paid commission. So this is a democratic system. It is a fair system. So rather than being a salesperson for Virgin Active that is going to take everything and give you a very simple once in a lifetime transaction, why not earn for one effort over and over and over again? That is exponentializing your potential and your earning potential. So I believe that this is a great method of making money. You can already also enroll as a member and shop till you drop. I've already explained this. When you're earning Bitcoin, you want a place to buy stuff that is convenient, where you don't need to convert your Bitcoin. The world needs what we have. Rubiluxe intends to be in 100 million homes in 5 years. These homes are going to be created by us, the people we call affiliates, who are the foundation of this business. How many of these homes are going to be yours? That will determine your net worth. That will determine the wealth or the poverty of your children and the future generations that are to come. From what I've explained, ladies and gentlemen, this is a brilliant opportunity and it is real. It's not too good to be true. This is a system that works. We have tested it, stress tested it. We've gone through the dark ages to make sure that it comes to life. We've launched different products that are recognized across the world. We've been approved by different regulators, and everything that we do is by the line. Even if it takes us a long time, we make sure that whatever product we bring to people is certified, it is valid, it works, and it benefits all of us. Because we are not trying to be quick, because we are not about quick money. We are about building generational wealth and generational partnerships. So please come and join us on this beautiful journey. We are a great team of people that interact with one another, and we teach one another about the space as we discover more about it, because it is a new space and it is developing. We hold one another's hands where it is necessary. We warn each other against scams, because we don't want to see people being scammed, people losing their money. So we spend a lot of time understanding how the industry works. Our collective experience, as I've already said at the beginning, is massive, because the people who've started this business and the people that you are looking at today, presenting it to you, have a collective of more than a decade in the space of cryptocurrencies. They know how to make and accumulate Bitcoin. They know how to build relationships. They know how to build networks. So if you want to go into the space, find a group of people that are like-minded, that are not about quick money, but are about building a foundation for you that will ensure your success. So far, there's only one group that I have found, and that is Rubiluxe. Thank you very much for joining us today, ladies and gents. If you do have any questions, you can either raise your hand or write them on the chat box, and then we will respond to you. That is where I will be stopping my presentation. Okay. Are there any questions? Ntate Motsohai, you are muted. I see you are talking, but I can't hear you.
Kindly stop the recording, please.
Oh, yes.